Well, good morning, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to another new year of Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. If you're joining us for the first time in 2026, this is program number 4. We did 365 last year with the coolest scientists and explorers on planet Earth. Well, I'm just so happy to have you back, and if you're new to us, we are all about bringing the coolest scientists and explorers on planet Earth into classrooms just like yours. So a big welcome to all of you. Check out our site. There's so much to explore and discover. I think we've got 50 programs already in the books for January and February combined. So it is going to be a wild and amazing start to the year. And as you may know, everything we do goes to our YouTube channel. So you can check this out in 3 years, 3 weeks, whenever you want to tune in. Lots of cool stuff to explore. Now today, before I dive in with our topic du jour, I want to note we do have a Kahoot today. So between our talk and our Q&A, if you want to play along with a little 4-question quiz, you can pull up this game pin below and get to it. It's an extra way to keep it interactive and fun in the middle. I also will note John's going to have some questions for you today. So keep your fingers on the keyboard so that you can answer in the chat on StreamYard, YouTube, both. We really look forward to having you take part. Now, I am prone to hyperbole. I'm a very enthusiastic guy and I love a lot of cool things, but I've got to say that this program specifically was one that I wanted to have on the broadcast for like the entire history of Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. We finally got John to do it last year, and I'm so excited to bring it back today because today we are talking about the lost shipwrecks of the Erebus and the Terror. So when I was a boy, when I was your age, this is one of the most iconic naval mysteries of all time. One of the great adventures of all time, with 2 ships lost in the Arctic. No one knew where they were. No one knew what happened to the people. And we found them not too long ago. And we are doing marine archaeology in Parks Canada, in Nunavut, to uncover their secrets. So if that doesn't sound pretty awesome to you, polar lost shipwrecks, epic exploration, I don't know what does. Why are you even here? But if you are as keen as I am, we're about to dive in with John. Thank you all so much for being here. And John, welcome back to the program, man.
Thank you so much, Jesse, and thanks for the amazing intro. It's great.
Before we dive in, I'll just say with your screen share, just because we have to do a little bit of finicky stuff in the display settings. Yep, put that guy and then swap that presenter view and then press that little hide button in the StreamYard and then you are good to go. Sweet. Take us away.
Great. Well, hi, everyone. Thanks for having me again, Jesse. It's good to be back. So as Jesse mentioned, I'll be talking about some underwater archaeology Parks Canada and our partners have been doing at the wrecks of HMS Erebus and HMS Terror. I'll give you a bit of a historical background on these 2 amazing shipwrecks in the expedition led by Sir John Franklin in 1845. And I'll give you a bit of a snapshot of what we've been doing, how we've been doing it, and some of the really, really cool things we've found over the years. So without further ado, I'll jump right into the presentation. So a little bit of background. The 2 ships we're going to talk about today, Erebus and Terror, were exploration ships that were sent on an expedition to try to find a northwest passage across what is Canada's Arctic in Nunavut today. So we can see at the left here, and I hope you can see Jesse, you can see my cursor here. I'll be using it from time to time.
Sure can.
Both of these were Royal Navy ships under the command of Sir John Franklin, here shown here, and his second in command, Francis Crozier. And this is what the ships look like. They're sailing ships, but they were also equipped with for the time, really novel steam engines, which could be used when there was when they wanted to get through the ice or when there was no wind. So they're really, think of these ships as being the most technologically advanced ships of their day, and they set out from England in May of 1845, and each ship had around 60 or so men on board. So they're jam-packed with crew members. So a little bit of geography here. So Canada, the top northeast end of Canada is over here on the left-hand side of the screen, Greenland, Iceland, and the United Kingdom and Ireland over here. So the ships set out from London, went up the North Sea, across just south of Iceland, came into Greenland, transferred some supplies, and then headed into the what is now Nunavut, and spent a winter here at a place called Beechey Island. And of course, this entire region was already at the time of the expedition inhabited by Inuit. So the expedition came in here, spent a winter, and headed down south in search of a northwest passage out of towards the west here. And in 1846, we know they got stuck in the ice. And unfortunately for the crew members, they attempted to, well, they left the ships. They attempted to get further south to southern Canada, and unfortunately, all of the crew members perished in the expedition. No one survived. So here we have a picture of, or a map rather, of the region where the ships became trapped in the ice in 1848, just north of, rather in 1846. This is an island called Kikitak, or King William Island. And the ships came down from the north here. They were stuck in the ice just north of the island in 1846. But about 2 years later, the um, the 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 crew left the ships in an attempt to get down south, and it's at this location where the ships were left. But for some reasons we don't completely understand, the ships made their way further south, and HMS Terror eventually sank on the southwest corner of Kikitak, King William Island, and Erebus sank on the just for a little further to the south. So Erebus was found in 2014, just over 10 years ago, and Terror was found uh, sorry, rather a little over 10 years ago, and Terror was found about 10 years ago in 2016. Erebus found in 2014. So the ships are quite far apart, and we don't know exactly how that happened. So that's a bit of a idea of where the ships are located. It took us quite a long time to use Inuit knowledge and all kinds of modern archaeological methods to relocate these wrecks. And there was quite a lot of information gathered after at the time of the expedition, when it started to kind of come undone, and at the time when the crew members were deserting the ships. They did encounter Inuit, uh, and Inuit learned quite a lot about what had happened to the expedition, especially afterwards, about the attempt of the men to retreat south and what happened to them, the sinking of the ships. And later explorers devoted a lot of time to searching the region. The Royal Navy sent out many expeditions, and explorers met with Inuit and learned a great deal about what had happened to the expedition. But a lot of questions remained. A lot of details, even to this day, still remain a bit of a mystery. So here we see an expedition, an explorer named Frederick Schwatka meeting with Inuit and learning about the happened to the expedition, and all kinds of artifacts and items that had been on the ships were found and used by Inuit and adopted into their own for their own purposes. And in this case, a sword turned into a snow knife. So there's a great deal of historical information about the expedition. We know the names of the men who were on it. We have letters and correspondence from before they went deep into the Arctic. There's a lot of really interesting information out there. I encourage you all to dig into this information. We have ship plans, we have drawings, we have paintings. There's no shortage of really cool historical information and Inuit knowledge, and accounts of the expedition that you can learn about. So let's get to the shipwrecks themselves. As I mentioned, Erebus was found in 2014, and it's largely intact. It's in quite shallow water at about 11 meters or 30 feet deep, and it's intact from the bow to the stern. A lot of all the masts and a lot of the equipment on the upper deck. Here we have the bow here at this end and the stern at this end. So it's pretty much intact. And it's made of wood, mostly, with iron and other kinds of fasteners, copper fasteners. And really, when we found the wreck in 2014, this is more or less what it looks like. This is a composite of many thousands of photographs. And one of the things I'll be talking about a little bit later is excavations or digging we've done into the wreck in this central part of the ship. This is the upper deck, which is where the crew would have walked on when they were sailing the vessel. Down below is the lower deck, where they would have lived and slept and ate. Okay. So I'll give you a few photos showing what the shipwreck looks like underwater. Here we are using scuba equipment. This is from fairly early on in our exploration of the wreck. You can see it's quite intact, but there's a lot of marine growth on the wreck. In fact, we have to clear off a lot of the growth to be able to see the wreck. There's kelp and other kind of aquatic plants that grow on the wreck. Here we see a colleague, one of our team members. We're all divers in our team. Um, Looking at the bow of the wreck and one of its anchors. And as we continued our study of the wreck, one of the things we really wanted to do was to, after we did initially found the wreck, was to start to try to answer some of the questions like, how did the vessel sink? How did it sink? What kinds of remains are on board? What kind of artifacts are we going to find? What kind of condition is the wreck in? And what can we learn about the expedition from this quite incredible shipwreck? So we initially started to use smaller boats and use scuba diving equipment. It was you know fairly standard equipment that we would use on an underwater archaeological site. But later on, we deployed we acquired and set up a diving and excavation support barge. So this is a large platform that we positioned over the wreck, and this would support excavation, which I'll show you a little bit more about a little later on. This is a little more sophisticated and in-depth exploration of the wreck. And also, this barge named Kinnick gave us the ability to dive a little safer. The water is very cold. It's just hovers above zero. It allowed us to have some of the equipment needed to support an excavation so that we could learn more about the wreck. So here's a view of the barge, and you can see here the wreck of the Erebus below. So it's a really neat setup, worked really well for us. And here's the barge here in action over the wreck. We use surface supply diving equipment. This is special diving equipment where we're fed air from the surface, and a really safe way of diving. And a really neat thing about this kind of diving, we actually had hot water pumped down through these diving umbilicals we use that connect us to the surface. We actually pump hot water into special suits to keep us nice and toasty warm. It's kind of like diving with in a jacuzzi, actually, in this very cold water. We have visitors come to the site, community members from the nearest um, hamlet called Joe Haven, and we have our partners have special guardians who keep an eye out over the site and keep it safe. So here we have our team on board the barge with community members who are visiting, and some of our diving equipment to keep us safe. All kinds of technology to communicate between the surface and the divers. Here's one of the special helmets we use for diving with lights and video. We can actually show on the top side of the surface what we're seeing underwater. This is the hot water suit I was mentioning. So we have a really safe setup, and when artifacts are brought up to the surface, the barge is well set up to take care of those artifacts. Here's a view diving on the Erebus with the surface supply equipment. This is that umbilical I mentioned, and really nice and toasty warm underwater and safe. We can talk between divers to the surface, and it's really a very efficient way of doing underwater science. And I mentioned we chose a specific area of the wreck to conduct some excavation. What we wanted to do was get a better sense of some of the kind of artifacts that we might see. And the really interesting thing is we actually excavated some of the bedrooms of the officers. And what you can see here is the excavation underway, and you can see us using dredges or underwater vacuums to excavate into some of the drawers of the furniture in these officers' cabin, looking for artifacts that'll tell us about the expedition. And here's one of those officers, Lieutenant James Fairholm. We found all kinds of neat things in what we think is his cabin, epaulets from his uniform, fossils, which are really neat, which probably collected as souvenirs or part of a scientific effort, bottles and you can see the great condition of these objects underwater. In another cabin, which was actually from used by a servant or a steward on the ship, we found an amazing collection of artifacts, including an entire dinner table set of ceramics. You can see them after the recovery, after treatment, conservation treatment here in Ottawa, and you can see some of those plates exposed here underwater in that cabin. Much of all of the cabin spaces we excavated had actually been infilled with silt and sediment. So it was actually kind of like digging on land, in that we're digging through dirt, if you will, to expose these artifacts. And one really cool artifact, we actually found an artifact with the name Edmund Hoare. This is an artifact with his name, and that corresponds to the servant who used this cabin, which is really cool. We found parts of books and Chinese coins, which may be souvenirs from a previous expedition that Edmund Hoare went on. We found toothbrush and hairbrush, bottles of ointments and medicines. And a really neat thing we also did, we actually went and conducted an excavation in a seaman's chest, which is shown here. And this would have been a chest where, rather than having their own cabin, the ordinary sailors on the ship would have had all of their personal possessions jammed into one half of a seaman's chest, which would also double as a seat or a bench. We wanted to get a sense of, the kinds of artifacts that we would find from an ordinary sailor and not just an officer. And we found in the seaman's chest a really surprising thing. We found toothbrushes, coins, we found medicinal vials, but we also found a number of pistols, which was really a bit of a mystery. And here we see one of our team members recovering a pistol, because normally we would not expect pistols to be kept in the personal storage space of a sailor, but they would be kept away, locked away. So it's a bit of a mystery as to why there's so many pistols in this chest. And I'll just give you a bit of a video clip here showing excavation and how we do it. We have a tool called a dredge, which is an underwater vacuum cleaner. And we excavate like on land with a trowel very carefully. We sometimes use other delicate instruments. And it's a very careful process to expose, remove the sediment, and carefully unearth these objects. It's a very painstaking, delicate process. We are recording with photo, video all the time. We're taking measurements. Here you can see a site plan that we're creating. It's a very laborious, painstaking process. This is actually part of an accordion that was found in the captain's steward's room, the servant I mentioned. So really amazing array. Here we carefully bag up the artifacts and bring them to the surface, and bring them into a laboratory that we have on the barge. And here we have team members Charles and Brandy taking care of a pistol that we recovered from that seaman's chest. And we found a really neat artifact. The last time we were on the site was in 2024, and we found a really neat object. And I wonder if anyone can tell me if they have any idea what this might be.
Ooh, all right. I'm going to put this to the crowd. If you're on YouTube, you're on StreamYard. Does anyone know what this freaky weird metal object is with all sorts of little things in it? I have a sense, but I'm not going to say. If you want to put it in the chat, we got a few seconds. You can play around with this. I want to say, too, as we're getting some answers for this, I just love that we have videos from this. Like, I know that you would do this for a very scientific reason, but it's just mind-blowing to be able to go under the water and look for these things. Anyway, telescope is our first guess. Okay. What else do we got? Anyone else? Thanks, Miss Nielsen's class, our portable country class, La Vie. Anything else? It kind of looks like the thing you would put photos in to see them. So like a photo frame. Cool. Okay. We've got microscope. My mind is that it's like a sextant, maybe. But John, tell us more. Am I right?
Yeah, it is actually a sextant. So this is a navigational instrument. So this would be used by crew members to determine, amongst other things, latitude, or how far up or their latitude on the surface of the Earth. So it's a navigational instrument which we first found in 2015, but we're able to recover in 2024. And here we have it in the lab. Okay, and I just want to share one other really neat thing I actually came across in 2024 was this. I was looking at the stern of the wreck and I was looking around. We're doing a bit of a visual inspection. I saw this something floating and it was about to float away, and I grabbed it, and it actually here, this is the moment I found it. We happened to actually be filming at the time, and it turns out when we got it to the surface is actually a coat that was perfectly folded and in perfect condition. So it's a really neat find, and sometimes these things happen when you're least expecting it. So we'll switch gears over in the time left to the wreck of the Terror, which is a little different in that you may remember that it's further north from the Erebus. It's in deeper water. It's in about 24 meters, or about 80 feet deep. So it's a little over double the depth of the Erebus. And again, we don't know exactly how the both wrecks got to be where they are. But the neat thing about the Terror is it's really intact. So whereas a lot of the upper parts of the Erebus have been broken off over the years and have fallen down, we can see here that the Terror is intact from the stern here, where my cursor is, up to the bow, and a lot of the masts and other parts of the ship, the original construction of the ship, are really well preserved. So here we have a sonar image of the wreck. We're looking top down, and to the right here we have a site plan of the wreck with uh, naming the features or the parts of the ship that we've identified. And a lot of these are on our website. Jesse will be able to share a link, so you can explore our website and look at these site plans and drawings and explore the wreck yourself. So the main takeaway here is that the Terror is really well preserved. We first started exploring the wreck with scuba diving, and then we actually went back later after the wreck was found. We went the next winter, and we were actually able to put a remotely operated vehicle through the ice. So we can actually do underwater archaeology not only by diving, but we can use remotely operated vehicles through the ice. And we've actually been able to dive through the ice as well. So we established an ice camp here actually in 2017. Here's the ice camp from above, which is really fun, working with our close Inuit partners from Joe Haven, the Guardians. Fantastic projects we've had working together over the years. And here's the condition of the wreck shown by the ship's wheels. So this is where the ship would have been steered by the crew in almost perfect condition. We later went back and did some diving, and we weren't using the surface supplied diving, so we weren't attached to the surface. We're using scuba tanks with dry suits, and we were able to actually take a little mini remotely operated vehicle here shown in the diver's hand and actually put it inside the wreck. And I'll show you some video from inside the wreck, which is very cool. Sometimes the visibility underwater is not that great, so we can't see very far, but this day it was quite good, so you can see quite far underwater. And again, the water is very cold, so I had to wear special equipment. And here's a little video showing what a dive to the Terror, some of our first dives looked like. So we're using we're diving, staying on a ship. We're in Terror Bay here, and we're diving from a small Zodiac boat. 2 divers at a time in the water. We hop in and check ourselves out, do some communication checks, make sure everything's working okay. And then we dive down a guideline to the wreck. I can say here we have 2 scuba tanks. We have a main one and a backup one just in case we have a problem with the first one. And this is what it looks like diving on the Terror. So we're at the bow here, and a lot of the wreck is covered with sediment and kelp which is an aquatic plant. And we dive around and explore, take photos, videos. We haven't excavated the Terror. In fact, we haven't brought up any artifacts from the Terror to date. And this is the ship's wheel, where the ship would be steered from. There's actually a boat, one of the ship's boats, which is off of the side on the seafloor next to the wreck. And here we are putting that micro ROV, remotely operated vehicle, into the wreck. There was some openings in the upper deck, and this is the amazing things we were able to see. This is a snapshot of some of the video we recorded inside. So this is where the crew members would have lived. The wreck is so intact that a lot of the objects, like these plates and bottles and ceramic items that the crew would have used, are still in their original spaces, but they are covered partially in sediment. So just an incredible wreck. You can see plates here. That this is the crew area where the lower ranking members would have lived. And here we're moving down into the officer area. The officers would have had their own cabins, and they had their own eating and recreation area. So we're going down a hallway, which is quite incredible. We were quite excited to be able to get this video inside the wreck, and it's like stepping back in time when you look through this video. So here's one of those officer bedrooms, and maybe I have one other question. Does anyone know what this part of the cabin is?
Jeez.
This item specifically.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to guess first because I don't think it's entirely out of left field, and I look forward to all the guesses in the chats. It looks like the headboard of a bed to me. Like if I was the captain, that would be the thing that I have behind me. I might be right about that. I could be entirely wrong. Does anyone else have any guesses? Let's see. By the way, we've already got so many questions coming in the YouTube chat, which is amazing. StreamYard chat, we're going to have a nice long Q&A. And I will say, too, for all our audiences, you're getting your answers in for this. If you have extra questions after the broadcast, email them to me. I'll get them to John. We'll get all your shipwreck queries answered. Top of a cabinet, like an ornamental top of a cabinet. Good guess. Bunk bed. But that's okay. So we got some more bed people. Thank you, Miss Corks. We've just got people that love seeing it all underwater. So a bunch of something cool in a either cabinet or bed. John, what's our answer?
Absolutely. Well, you're right. This is a bed place, or the bed of an officer. And the really neat thing about this is a decorative, it's called a lee board, or basically a sideboard. And this stops the person in the bed from rolling out of bed. When, imagine we're on a ship. So if the ship is rolling from side to side or heaving side to side, this helps you stop from falling out of the bed. It's kind of like what you have on a bunk bed to keep you from falling out. So, and it's a highly decorative item. So it's a really cool feature to see. And to imagine that some officer spent many, many, many cold nights during the expedition in this bed, many of those nights trapped in the ice. And one of the really neat areas we were able to get to in the Terror was Captain Crozier's cabin. Here we can see part of his cabin with his writing desk covered in sediment. There's all kinds of scientific instruments stored inside the his cabin, and also we found a storage room further down the hallway in the lower deck. And just look at, these are bottles within their storage niches or little cubbies, and in a perfect state of preservation. So really, really cool. And that is pretty much the end of our tour of Terror and Erebus, and an outline of our work. And what we have here is some ideas or some pointers to where you can go to for further information on our work and our partners' work, and on the Erebus and Terror. Erebus and Terror, a National Historic Site of Canada, and there's many, many people working on this project to support this site. And yeah, was happy to share this with you, and I guess I can take some questions if there's time.
Awesome. Well, there's tons of time, John. Feel free to come out of screen share so you can see us have a bit of a conversation. We're going to start with our Kahoot quiz to reinforce some of those big ideas from the program, and then I'm so excited to dive in with Q&A. I want to stress, too, for our adult audience, there's an amazing book by Michael Palin, too, called Erebus, which highlights these ships and their journeys around the world. It's really amazing. And then there's a scary show for adults, too, called The Terror, which I recommend for anyone who's over about 20. But we're going to dive in with our Kahoot. Please do, if you're new to Kahoot, the faster you answer, the more points you get, and what you win is John and I's everlasting respect for having paid really good attention. And then we're going to go to our StreamYard classes, YouTube classes, lots of questions, and if you have any more, please do email them to us. We'd love to pass them along to John and the Parks Canada Archaeology team. I also want to say, John, in the chat I had no idea that Parks Canada had scuba divers. And it's like, yes, this is why this is such a cool program, is that you have a whole marine archaeology team that does these sorts of things. And this is like, it's just, there's so many amazing jobs at Parks Canada if you're keen. We're going to be doing like 30 more programs with Parks this year. So stay tuned, everybody. But here we go. John, if you want to help us out with any hints of these answers too, you're welcome to chime in. But we'll get in with question number 1 to begin. All right, multi-select, more than one right answer. What are our 2 ship names? You spent 30 minutes listening to them. Are they the Endurance, the Erebus, the Terror, or the Terra Nova? I would say, too, that, we covered 2 of these. The other 2 are also iconic polar exploration ships, and you should go check them out immediately as well. In fact, one of them we were the main digital education partner for when we did the Journey to Find It, which is the Endurance. But these 2 ships, of course, are the Erebus and Terror. Yes, most of you got that right. Way to go. Classy Giraffe has our lead. All right, question 2. Some artifacts that have been found at the wrecks include, John showed all these great pictures of all the things they found, and we're just scratching the surface here, but pistols, coins, toothbrushes, or all of the above. And if you've joined me for a Kahoot ever in the past, you'll know that I'm really fond of one kind of answer when I do things like this. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, maybe number 4. My favorite are the plates. I was saying this to John before we went live. Like, it's just truly unbelievable that we could find something that's that well preserved and that delicate after 150 years. So Classy Giraffe keeps her lead. 2 more questions. Anyone is allowed to dive on the wrecks and take things they find. What do we think, John? There's you with a coat. Could I just go up to Haven and come down and grab one of those plates and swim away? Or you're bristling internally just even thinking about it? I like to stress this every time we have an archaeologist on, that it's really, really important that the answer to this is false. So quite a few of you thought true. So no, John, just to confirm this, like, you have to be a Parks Canada archaeologist. You have to have lots of training. And this is a very, very restricted dive site because it's of such importance historically. Yes?
Yeah, it's a National Historic Site, and like any other important sites across Canada, they have certain protections, and one of them is to make sure that if anyone's doing any archaeology, including ourselves, that we do it to the highest possible standard, and we record things properly, and we can preserve the artifacts we recover, and really share the information we find. So we even have to take out permits ourselves to conduct the archaeology. So there are certain the sites like Erebus and Terror are protected because they're so important, and we want to make sure we're doing the science and the research properly.
Nice. Thank you for the deep dive. All right, we're going to go to our final question before we start with Q&A. We've completed all the archaeological work. John's done. He just never has to go back. They're scrapping that barge. We're all done. What do we think? I love highlighting this in archaeology and paleontology as well, because when I was the age of our students, I assumed that, like, oh, we found a wreck, everything was done pretty lickety-split. And the answer, you're smiling, because the answer is no, very much not. We continue to find new things about this all the time. Almost our entire audience got that right. Usually big, anything where we're sort of uncovering history can usually be like a multi-decade, if not more, adventure, which is really, really exciting. So you can build a whole career off something like finding these wrecks. And you guys nailed that as an audience. So here we are, Rapid Zebu, not Rapid. The second and first, Classy Giraffe, wire to wire. Way to go, Levy. Nicely done in North Topsail Beach. That's awesome. All right, folks, enough of me talking. We're diving in with Q&A. Madam Nielsen's class, we want to head to you guys first in Pitt Meadows. If you want to unmute your mic and come on in with a question, you are good to go. Hi, guys. Welcome in, 4-5s.
Hi. I have a coming up with a question.
Let's do it.
Duck.
There you go. Um, what do you think the first artifact you will find on the Terror?
Ooh.
Good question. Well, we've seen some artifacts already on the wreck, but we just haven't raised any to the surface. So we've actually seen the ship's bell, which is really neat. It's resting on the upper deck, and there's actually a cannon on the upper deck too. We found a musket on the upper deck. So there's some really cool things that we've seen on the Terror already, but we just haven't brought anything to the surface. And one thing about the Terror is the upper deck that we can see easily is covered in sediment. And one last point is that, as you saw from the perhaps there's many artifacts that are inside the wreck, and many we haven't even seen yet.
I love that you're a man after my own heart and you start with musket and cannon. Thank you very much for that. That's what I'm most excited about as well. So great question, guys. Also, that was like the coolest hair of all time. So well done to your barber. Ms. Grimm's class online. I just want a great follow-up to this. Wanted to know why you bag them up in the ocean. I noticed that too, that you're under the water and you're putting things in bags before you bring them up rather than after. Why do you do that?
Really good question, because a lot of the artifacts we bring up are made of multiple pieces, or they're fragile, and we want to keep them together. And often we wrap up the artifacts before we even put them in bags. We wrap them up in bandages to keep them together. And a really important point is when we take it from water to air, it takes on, like, there's a lot more stress on the artifact. So we want to also try to keep water around the artifact, and the plastic bags allow us to do that. So when we bring it out into the air, the artifact won't dry out. It's kind of cushioned, if you will, by the water, and it minimizes the stress on the artifact as we bring it to the surface.
Yeah. If any of our audience has seen one of our paleontology programs when they're digging up dinosaur bones, they cloak them in like this thick a layer of stuff before they move them because they really want to make sure they're not damaging them en route to get to a lab where they can really process them and do great research on them. So same is true of archaeology, and I'm really glad we got that one. Thanks, guys. All right, Lavi, our winner of our Kahoot, come on in and take us away with a question. Nice to see you again.
Hi, how are you doing today?
Great. How are you?
Great. So I have a few questions. So my first question is, how do you decide which artifacts to go after first? Because some have to be harder to get than others.
Yeah.
Good question. Well, sometimes if we don't have to excavate, we will raise a number of artifacts if we think they have information that we want to get at, or we want to raise them to understand the challenges we may have with conserving them. So those are some decisions we make if the artifacts don't need to be excavated. But once we decide we're going to excavate a certain area, all right, we have certain methods that we follow. We can't just kind of pick and choose artifacts and throw some away to the side and not recover everything. So we really are bound. We really have to recover everything that we uncover in excavation. So we don't really have a choice, because as we move those artifacts, we lift them from where we found them. If we don't take care of them all, we're losing the information that they all contain.
Yeah.
So we kind of, in many ways, don't really have a choice if we're excavating. I hope that's clear.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And we've covered every time we do archaeology, this is a universal thing. Like if they find a site with 20,000 artifacts, they are doing the research on those 20,000 artifacts. Like it's really important that we get the sense of the broader site. And so, yeah, thanks, John. All right, a question that my mother had too in advance of this program when I told her I was doing it. Ms. Corr's class wants to know, are you going to bring up the ship? Like, are you ever going to take it up and put it in a museum somewhere? Is that even possible? What's the deal?
Yeah, that's a question we get asked very regularly about any shipwreck. We've worked on shipwrecks all across Canada, and it is technically feasible to lift shipwrecks, especially smaller ones. And it's very costly though, and you've got to bear in mind that it takes a lot of money and time to preserve not just single or groups of artifacts, but an entire ship is enormously expensive to preserve and conserve, and so over the years, we tend not to consider raising ships just because of the costs and the commitment to really, keep them in good shape.
Yep, it's a great answer and very nuanced. Thanks, John. All right, we're going to go back to our live groups just to make sure we can sneak them in before they might have to go for the day. And then there's a bunch of YouTube questions. We'll try and take 4 or 5 more questions. Please do email them more to me if you have them. We'd love to take them. But Madam Nielsen's class, come on back in. Take us away. Hey.
Hi, how many rooms do you think would be in the Terror?
Ooh, how many rooms?
Oh boy, we actually do know. I can't say off the top of my head, but there's around 15. Don't quote me on this. There's probably experts online right now who know exactly how many, but it's around 15. I can maybe answer once I consult.
I can find that out pretty fast, but this is the thing, is that we know the Terror and Erebus. Like, we know the layout of these ships, so we know the rooms of where they are. It's just getting to them and accessing them.
Actually, I have a better answer.
Please.
On our website, we actually have a plan of the lower deck of the Terror, and you can go on our website, and and it's in French and English. You can find our plan of the lower deck of the Terror, and you can find out exactly how many rooms there were.
So I've just put that in the chat for everyone, but I will email it to all our registered classes as well. And I can't recommend it enough. There's so much more there than we could possibly do in one broadcast. So beautiful. Thanks for the question, guys. All right, Lavi, you said you had multiple. We're back to you. Come on in. Take us away. Hey, but unmute first. There we are.
Sorry. So my other question is, it's really cool in the water. If this were in warmer waters, it would probably impact the preservation. In what ways?
Ooh.
Oh, wow. Yes, it would. Because one thing that Erebus and Terror have going for them is the water is very cold. So it's hovering around 0 Celsius. And we've seen from 0 to 6. So what happens is, the higher the temperature, typically, the greater the biological processes that break down say wood and artifacts and the organic matter of materials on the wreck. So yes, temperature has been working in the favor of Erebus and Terror. And also, let's not forget that for most of the year, the sites are covered by ice. And that has the effect of dampening down water movement, which can be destructive. So the environment, the cold environment, most of the year, or in fact all of the year, has had a really positive effect on the preservation of these wrecks. And as I mentioned, the depths of the Terror, quite a lot deeper, has also been in its favor as well.
Yep. We mentioned the Endurance in our Kahoot, so we did the feature on finding it as a shipwreck too, and it's in like 10,000 feet of water, and it's perfectly preserved. You can see the word Endurance on the back of it. So it's quite remarkable that we found some of these really iconic shipwrecks as you guys are growing up. Like when I was a boy, none of these were found, and it's just amazing that we're getting the chance to do all this marine archaeology and sort of uncover their mysteries. So cool question. Thanks, Lavi. All right. John, we're going to be bad, and we're going to go like 1 minute overtime to take 2 rapid fire questions, and then we'll say farewell. Please do email them the rest to me. But let's see. Elena wants to know, where do all the artifacts go after you process them?
Well, really good question. They come back to our laboratory here in Ottawa, and actually quite a few of them are back in Nunavut at a interpretation center called the Nadalik Heritage Center in Johaven. So some of the artifacts we recovered from the Erebus are actually back in Nunavut on display, and others are kept in our collection facility and available for researchers to come and have a look at them. So yeah.
Oh, lucky you. And by the way, I've got to say that, John, you had a choice there of laboratory or laboratory. And I always think it gives more of a cool, evil scientist vibe when you say laboratory. So thank you very much for that. Not that you're evil in any way. I just want to stress. Virtual elementary school. So many questions from you. Please email the rest of them to me. I like this question. Have you ever had anything break as you're picking it up? So you're like, you've gone down, you've taken it up, and then the plate shatters. Does that happen when you're doing marine archaeology, or can you tell us?
Yeah, I mean, it can happen, but we take great pains to make sure that it doesn't happen. And we before we raise something, we put a lot of thought into exactly how we're going to bring this up to the surface. So it's a very, very, if it happens, it's a rare occurrence.
We've done a few programs now, and it's quite amazing to see how dedicated the marine archaeology team is to, again, make sure that this is done with the utmost care. There's no hurry, there's no rush to get 50 artifacts today. Like, we're really trying to make sure that this is a preserved historical record that people can study and understand and cherish for centuries more to come. So I love your questions, guys. And John, I just want to say thank you so much for coming in to share your story. Is there any final message you want to leave us with about these wrecks before we bring in our class to say a big thank you and farewell?
Yeah, well, I'd like to say thanks to everyone for attending, and keep on exploring, keep on learning about underwater archaeology and diving and shipwrecks. There's a lot, there's a lot of underwater sites out there to learn about. And for Erebus and Terror, we have a lot on our website, and you can there's videos to watch and photos, like photo galleries, and site plans and drawings. So yeah, keep on digging and looking into our the information we have.
John, no better message than that. We're going to pass along all those links to the classes at the end. Thank you so much for being such a great audience. If you're at home on YouTube and you want to scream and yell and annoy the principal, you have our permission. Please do. But we'll bring in Lavie and Madam Nielsen's class. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you all soon. Farewell, farewell.